Probably one of the most frustrating things for families is when they see the need for care. They see that a parent's life could be better if they would only accept either a move or a caregiver or a driving service or whatever it might be. But that parent meets that proposal with crossed arms and an absolute, you got to be kidding. No. It frustrates families because they don't know what to do. They see the need, yet they feel like they can't make impact or make the situation better. So most often, families rely on three different approaches. And what I want to share with you today is a fourth approach that I believe will be more effective. So the first approach that families oftentimes will use is really trying to convince the parent. They have really rational arguments and they have researched it and they know they can very intelligently make the argument of why the parent should accept it, and with everything that the parent says they have a counter argument. But oftentimes I would call that approach the blue in the face approach, because you will just keep on talking and talking and talking until you're blue in the face, not necessarily convincing the parent, because the parent, for whatever reason, and I'll get to that in a second, is really they're not going to necessarily go along with a rational plan. So that's one approach. A second approach is the steamroller approach. Now, while that might seem extremely effective, because that's where families come in, they have an idea, my parent needs a housekeeper, so they just hire the housekeeper. I don't care whether my parent wants it or not, they're just going to have it, and they force the point sort of steamrolling ahead. Now, again, that could be effective because we get the service in place. But what happens is it creates a lot of bad will, a lot of bad feelings, some trauma. Sometimes that lasts for long periods of time, and that generally wouldn't be necessarily the approach of choice. The third approach is one where families say, I really want to be respectful. I want to honor my parents' desires, their wishes of what they would like. And so when the parent says no, they back down and they say, I get it, that's fine. And they don't necessarily address it, and they say, you know what, I'll try again in the future, and maybe at some future time my parent will accept it. Now, I've been doing this for 30 plus years, and I have rarely seen people come to that point where they say, I really want the care, please bring it in right now. So oftentimes waiting doesn't necessarily address the issue, and a parent could live in less than ideal situations for long periods of time. There is a solution, though, one that I find generally works with clients who are experiencing this holding on to resistance. It's a fourth approach, and it takes getting an objective third-party professional involved, someone who can facilitate the discussion, somebody who's going to get to know who that older adult is, and the focus is really on understanding where is that resistance coming from. What I've found is that resistance is really tied to fear. And it's fear of different kinds of things. So it's fear of impoverishment. It's fear of change. It's fear of the unknown and being out of control. And it's fear of being perceived as less than capable. So once we can understand which fear it might be tied to, then the interventions chosen are really specific. And the language we use, how we approach the client, generally allows us to get somebody to move beyond this issue of resistance. Let me give you a quick example. For the client who is fearful of being perceived as less than capable, the approach is not necessarily coming in there and telling them about all their needs and how we're going to help them, but instead it's really about, I get it. I would align myself with that client and say, I get it, I understand you don't feel you need anything and you're doing just fine right now. But I do have to tell you, your son and daughter-in-law, they're losing sleep at night. So I am not asking you to accept care because you need it. But I'm going to ask you, would you consider getting just a little extra help, just to be able to give your son and daughter-in-law a little extra peace of mind? And by shifting that, taking that spotlight off of the senior and putting it on someone else, it allows the senior to then hear what the request is without being so defensive. And sometimes we can get people to move beyond that resistant stance. So this is just one approach to use, but I would highly recommend in having a conversation with a geriatric care manager or another professional to be able to brainstorm and be able to come up with innovative solutions to get beyond the resistance.